All right, so we're back here on day 2 if you're live in the class. If you're online, you don't know it's day 1, day 2. It doesn't matter to you. But once again, the slides are not really going to be that worthwhile because there are no state slides. You should be following along in your handout, which you here have, I hope. And we're on D. We just got done finishing talking about all of the things that would be a Class A infraction. And if you remember, I said, as long as you're not doing any of those 26 or 8 violations, you're assumed to be practicing properly. Now, if you are not practicing properly and they catch you with one of these, here's what they can do to you. So here are some of the penalties for a Class A infraction. And they can do these penalties singly or joined together. They can give you one of these or several of them and all of that. Number 1, the big mamaluka is the revocation. They can revoke your license completely. You've done something wrong. You have proven yourself unworthy. We're not worthy. The old, what was that? Wayne's World. Thank you. Wayne and Garth. I like it. She goes, can I be frank with you? He goes, can I still be Garth? Do what? Yes. Although next week doesn't matter. Yeah, that's fine. They can revoke your license. There's more to come on this revocation, so we'll talk more about that in a minute. They can also suspend your license. That's their favorite thing to do. And typically when they suspend your license, they suspend it with a time frame. Suspended for 30 days, suspended for 90 days, something like that. Now the next two is they can issue they can also issue a court order to cease and desist. If you're doing something that they think is wrong, not until they can actually get a hold of you into the courts, they will send you a cease and desist order. Hey, you need to stop practicing today and come to the next meeting next month, and we're going to have a discussion. So that's very common for them to send a cease and desist order. Say you and me. Thank you. Number 4 and 5 virtually are the same thing, a censure or a letter of reprimand. Theoretically, a censure is them yelling at you. Hey, you stupid, you shouldn't, all right? But a letter of reprimand actually is retained in your permanent record. You guys remember when you were in grade school and they said, that's going to be on your permanent record? That's followed you all your life? Well, this would then go into that same permanent record. Theoretically, a censure, they are not supposed to use again. You get in trouble, they told you did something wrong, don't do it again. A letter of reprimand they would put in your file, and if something happened, they could pull it out and go, hey, you have shown yourself over a pattern through this. We gave you a letter of reprimand a year ago for doing this. Now you're doing it again. So they would use a letter of reprimand to create a pattern if you did something. They can place you on probation. There are several different types of probation. Probation's different than suspension. Suspension means you can't do any work. Suspended for 30 days. Probation, you can still work, but you have to do something while you're on probation. And there are several different kinds. There's this one called reporting probation. You actually have to go in to the commission every month and say, we've listed these 3, we've closed this one, so that they have an idea of what you're doing and they can keep track of you. They can have limitation probation. You are to not do any more short sales. You messed that one up. There was a grievance filed, so they can limit your practice. They can do education probation. That's their favorite one. How many hours of continuing ed do you have to do a year? 12. They can add on to that. They may say for the next 2 years, we want you to do your 12 hours, but we also want 8 more hours each year on this topic. All right? A common one they love is more ethics classes. If you've done something, they may come and say, hey, do your 12, but we want 4 more hours on top of that in ethics. And I've done that here at the school several different times for several different people where they had to take an additional continuing ed on top of that. They can also tell you not to do something. You can't do this. Don't do commercial. Don't do bank-owned homes. It's a variation of the limitation, probation. They can also order community restitution or community service. They had a young lady that did something, and it involved, she had like 2 or 3 DUIs in a year. And they suspended her real estate license until she came back with proof that she went to an AA class. Because at that time, we were driving people around in our cars. You know, and they didn't want her having consumers in the car if she's prone to drinking. So they forced her to get an AA chip. AA, that's the drinking one, right? AAA is the car one. So if you're drinking in the car, is that 5A? Yes.
So how often do you usually drive the clients?
The question is, how often do we drive now? Technically, the way the industry has changed, you don't drive people in your car. Now, not ever. I never use superlatives, and never would be one of those. I had a professor at A&M that said, never bet on the word always, and that's not always true. In the way our business has changed, it used to be that they would come to our office because we had a 3-ring binder of all the listings, and they would have to look at the listings. This is like pre-internet days. So they were already at the office, and what you would say is, all right, get in the car. You can ride with me on the way over. That was called the ride-along method. Then all of a sudden, technology's changed, and the way people love to sue other people has changed. So now the common thing is somebody's going to call you and go, hey, Bryce, I saw this house for sale. Can you get me in it? You're like, okay. And they're most followed up with, I'll meet you there. So now we do a caravan. So you meet them there. They show up. Then you go, oh, there's another one. Can we go see it? Yeah, follow me. And there's actually some advantages to doing the caravan method. Most notably, the accident. If they get hit, they're not in your car. But the other reason is that allows you maybe to make a phone call to someone else. That also allows them to have some privacy to discuss between a husband and wife. Even though you're their agent, there are still some people that want to talk without even their agent there. So that does give them a chance. The other good reason is, hey, you've got children. I don't have a car seat. So you got to drive. I'll follow you, or you follow me. So very seldom do we do the ride-along method anymore anyway. It's now mainly what we call the caravan. Number 5, complete rehabilitation and or treatment. That's the one that fell under when they made her go to AA. Alcoholics Anonymous. And the very first thing they do at Alcoholics Anonymous is what? Introduce themselves. I think they missed the point of what Anonymous is. I would give him someone else's name. Hi, I'm Josh Grow. Yeah, now you can do it on Facebook. Yeah, opportunity to give your business card out. You don't know how many Dewey cycles we have out here in the summer. They can assess a civil penalty. All right, here's a key part to the test. This is a civil court. It is not a criminal court. At no time can they ever assess time. They can't force you to do time. And I have been told, hint, hint, that there is a question on one of the exams that says something about, sentenced you to 3 years or sentenced you to 1 year. This is a civil court. All they can do is assess a fine. It's not a criminal court. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're doing something wrong, they will get the attorney general involved, who then can get you for criminal activities. But the real estate commission is only a civil hearing. Up to $1,000, I would say you could probably cross out the word up to. I've never seen them fine anything but $1,000. That's their favorite fine. They can also assess a fine equivalent to whatever benefits you see. They got a guy recently out of Fort Wayne for brokering without a license, and I think they fined him the total amount of, finger quotes, commission he earned. It was like $800,000 or $900,000. He was an investor that was doing that bird dogging, and he wasn't going on title. He was just collecting a fee for doing it. And the bad thing was he did like 37 of them in 1 year. And by the time they caught him, they said, hey, you actually are brokering without a license. And he tried to defend himself and say, oh, it's bird dogging, I'm getting finder fees. And they're like, no, you brought buyers and sellers together without a license. That's what brokering is defined as. And they fined him the total amount of money that he had made over that. They can also order you to pay restitution for someone that's harmed. You're going to see that here when we get to talking about the Real Estate Recovery Fund. Now, they can also, before I say that, let me say one other thing. Remember I told you it doesn't matter what happens, you could be caught freebasing kittens. You have to go in front of the commission to lose your license. Whatever you did in the private world doesn't mean you automatically lose your real estate license. They have to have a hearing for that. Now, if you deserve it, then yeah, you're going to do it. But they can do this one thing called a summary suspension. A summary suspension. If they think that you are a present and clear danger to the public, they can plus tax. Yeah, summarily. Say it again. Summarily. Thank you. You get a gold star for the day. Summarily? That's not even a word, is it? Suspend your license by simply sending you a letter and say, hey, you have proven yourself that you're a danger. We want you to stop right now. That would come with that cease and desist, all right? So they can suspend your license up to 90 days without a hearing. And then you go in front of the commission and say, Lucy, let me explain. And then you can either get it lifted or continued. Get those at the post office. They're free, by the way. I've got a whole handful of them at the house in Nashville. Before they suspend your license, though, they are supposed to try and get a hold of you. They will have the Attorney General call you. If they suspend it, they can reinstate it after the board has a meeting on it. So they would call you in. Number 4, this is true. If you are delinquent on child support, you will lose your real estate license. Yeah. You also, side note, lose your driver's license, by the way. So those delinquent dads, they are starting putting, or moms, I don't want to be sexist, they are starting to put teeth in these laws now, where they will take, my ex-wife's a nurse, and her friend, who was a female, had to pay child support, and she lost her nursing license until she paid it. course, it seems to me that's a government's, you're behind in money, so let's take your way to make money and the method to get to a job away from you. I guess the theory is you would find money quickly. Huh? I saw a guy that was $32,000 in jail behind, and I think he did time, you know. 25 is a felony? Oh, 125 is a felony? And I think the law says $2,000 or 4 months is what they consider delinquent. So if you're 4 months behind or $2,000, whichever is the less.
I went to a child support firm for my degree. I was in legal studies, and I was watching, and they had the night before went at 3 o'clock in the morning and did a sweep of like 75 people just in the Marion County area who were delinquent on child support.
Yeah.
And they were rolling them through.
Yeah, they will come get you. So you can lose your real estate license if you are delinquent in child support. Number 5 is important. We talked about this revocation. They can revoke your license. If your license gets revoked, here's what happens. It's gone. That license can never be reinstated. If a license gets suspended or put on probation or any of those, they can reinstate your license. If it gets revoked, that license is gone. Now, what that means is you've got to start all over again. Go back through school, take the test, pass it, make application. And here's the second shoot on that. You have to wait a minimum of 7 years before you can even try. All right? So if you've done something to get your license revoked, you've done something really bad, first of all. And second of all, that license is gone. If you ever want another one, you're going to have to wait at least 7 years, and they can still say no. All right?
So you take the test, you go through the class,
Yes.
pass the test.
There's the big kick in the ding-ding that no one's really thought it through yet, is they can't say no until you make an application. And you can't make an application until you take the test. And you can't take the test until you take the class. You can't take the class until you pay for it. And we have had a person that happened to. They came back, went through, did the course, did the test, made the application, and the commission said, sorry, no. They will not tell you in advance, hey, would you ask? Can't tell you. Got to make an application, then we'll tell you. Yeah. A license can be returned voluntarily to the commission unless you are the subject of an investigation or the Attorney General says you can't. So what this law is basically saying is if you think that you're going to be put on probation or suspended or revoked or anything like that, you can't surrender without going to the court. You can't say, yeah, I'll just turn it back in. Nope. You cannot voluntarily surrender your license yet. We want to put you on the hook so that if you decide to reinstate your license later, there is a penalty waiting for you. Okay? So you can, to surrender your license, you have to have permission, and they will not give you permission if the Attorney General's investigating you or the Commission's investigating you. We're going to change audio files.